Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Space Engine. I'm just kidding. We all know this series is actually never going to end. Yeah, it's just going to keep going forever and ever and ever. Anyways, yes, welcome back to Space Engine. It has been, what, 4 weeks since the last one? And I feel terrible about that. I was actually supposed to be recording this last weekend, but I've been horrifically busy and haven't gotten around to doing it. Uh, but my printer is currently not running, so I can actually record right now, and it's going to be wonderful. So let's get into it. Control. What does it be? All right. It exists. It does exist. Boop. Apparently, there's some cool stuff here. Excuse me. All right, we have a. I. Oh. 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 My, that's really narrow binary. What are you guys up to? Number of satellites? 2. One with life. Wait, which one has life? This one has life. Oh, I guess I was on the Berry Center. So these are... Hmm. My goodness, look at them. Alright, let's look at the temperate era with... Tem temperate arid Terra. Era. Ugh. Anyways, what is its approximate size? Diameter. 0.6 that of Earth, whereas this one is 0.7. So this one's a bit bigger. Let's look at the mass. 0.4, 0.3. Yeah, okay, so the one with life, I'm gonna say is the dominant one here, because it's a bit bigger. Even though they're both incredibly similar in size. Um, Damn, that would be such a cool planet to live on. I mean, the tides would be absolute just bullshit, but that would be so cool. Here, let's land somewhere on here, on this peninsula. Yeah, that's a landing. Is that the star over there? Or that's a star. Is that the sun of the system? No, that's not the sun. Alright, so you're just like chilling out, and you have, oh, a nice galaxy in the sky. A volcano in the distance. A very bright star, which that might be the star at the center of this system. I'm not sure. And then you have that in your sky. And then you're like, I'm gonna go for a trip. So you go launch your rocket. And, no, that's the star at the center of the system. Huh, so wow. And then you land on your planet, or on the moon. And then you're like, computer's frozen, because that happens. Anyways, and then you look up, and boom, there's the peninsula you were at. Man, I love it. This is a bright place. What's this atmosphere looking like? We are seeing... there we go. Atmospheric composition, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water, and sulfur dioxide. So, not the best place to be breathing. It's a thin atmosphere too, so you're not going to be breathing this anyways, at least not for very long. Meanwhile, its more lively compatriot, its atmosphere is water, nitrogen, and oxygen. It's a little bit thicker than Earth. That actually might be breathable. It depends on what I want to check the actual composition and like the percentages, but whenever I use like the tab thingy on this, like if I do the info thing, it crashes the game. I need to fix that or find some way to fix that because I want to know, but I unfortunately cannot. But it's fine. What we have here is a really nifty system, and I really appreciate this. It has kind of a Romulus Remus look to it, or actually no, Romulus and Remus were a bit different. Remus was absolute hot garbage, whereas Romulus was a nice place to live until it stopped being a place at all. Oh, Star Trek. I like how the Romulans were just straight up like Romans. Like everything about them was Romans. Like their hierarchical structure, like their government structure, their what do you call it? Ranks, Their planets were unironically called, like their home planet was unironically called Romulus, which was the mythical name of the fellow who founded Rome, and Remus was his brother. And, like, they were just straight up Romans, and I find that funny. Where are we go? Oh man. And then the Klingons were at the time, and they were kind of well, they were supposed to be the Soviets because the writers back in the day were like, we have Kirk and Spock and all them doing all this great stuff, and we have all these political stories, but we need something that feels more real for the time. And they were like, what we need a villain, a superpower that is adversarial to the Federation, like how America is adversarial to the Soviets. And they were like, I know, let's make an alien race. Call them the Klingons. We'll make them come off as sound like a ruthless warrior race. And then the Klingons were talking about the Federation as if the Federation were like ruthless and amoral. And it's like, I see what you writers did there. That's clever. And then the Klingons actually developed beyond being just a random villain, and they became interesting. But anyways, my goodness, what is new in the world? Well, Russia shot down a satellite a few days ago. Was not a good thing. I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish everyone would stop doing that. America did it once. Wasn't good. Actually, I think America did it twice, but one of the times they were shooting down a satellite that was already crashing, so that was whatever. I don't care about that. India did it. They shouldn't have done that, but at least that was lower orbit, so pretty much all those debris, I think most, if not all of those pieces have already burned up by now. China did it, wish they didn't, and now Russia's did it, and I wish they didn't. So that's just hot garbage, and we'll have to deal with that for a while. Which galaxy is this? Ooh, actually, alright, if you look at it, it has kind of a warp. Or, I have to check something. I have to check something. I want to see if there's been some updates to the Milky Way. This is important. No, there has not. Okay. Right here, the Milky Way is shown as a flat disk. And in most depictions, it's a flat disk. It's a barred spiral, so face on it has the wide bar, which this one kind of does, so that's pretty accurate. But the disk itself is actually warped. It's like kind of warps down to one side, then up to the other. So it's kind of like a very shallow Pringle is the best way to describe. I describe it as. So yeah, our galaxy's disk is actually kind of warped. It looks like it's kind of doing a wave. It's kind of cool. Look it up. So, what is this satellite cluster right here? That is M54 NGC 6715. Let's go there, because why not? Anyways, someone asked me to talk about what it was like during Y2K and other various end of the worlds, including, what was it, May 2011? Now, let's see here. Y2K, I was, what? I was 7 or 8 when that happened. And I don't remember it being as big of a deal as the media made it out to be. Like, there was tons of people who believed it, and there was a lot of kind of stupid, like, you know, books you could buy and this and that. But overall, like, to the average person, it wasn't really a concern. But the whole idea of it basically goes back to when computers were made. They have their internal, like, dating system, or they use this binary, and it basically, to save processing power, whenever it does a year, it shorthands it to the last two numbers. So in like the 70s, you know, it'd be 7, then a number like in the 85 would have been 85. And in the 90s, same thing. It wasn't a problem. It was like 9-1, 9-2, 9-3. And back in the 80s, I believe, someone was thinking about it, and they thought, what happens when it hits 2000? Because when it hits 2000, it's going to go 0-0. And the computer will either think that that is 0, like 2000, or 1900, or 1800 or 1700. There's no frame of reference for 00, and nobody exactly knew what would happen to the computers at that point. It would probably cause glitches within the computers because it's like its internal date system was now thinking that it was like 100 years out of date. So people behind the scenes started quietly working on this, kind of all around the world actually, to do a fix for it. And it wouldn't have been like a massive problem. I mean, if it had hit computers that were important, it could have caused glitches that could have caused major problems. But it wouldn't have been like end of the world kind of situations. But it still would have been a really shitty situation. So people basically worked for like a decade or two to fix this. So by the time 2000 rolled around, computers were all updated, and it wasn't a problem. There were some issues, like I think in Germany, a railway, like a train station computer, kind of messed up and was giving the wrong date, which is hardly a disaster. And it happened in a few places where basically computers were giving the wrong date, and it's like that's kind of funny, but it's hardly a problem. Let's go here. So yeah, but I do remember people saying it's like, oh, make sure you turn off your computer before midnight, or else it'll like explode or catch fire or something. Everyone had a different idea of what would happen. I didn't care. I was a child. I just wanted to have fun. Plus, this was like again the holidays. I didn't care. Um, we had a party, a very lame party because I grew up poor. We made confetti. That was fun, and pretty much that was it. We watched the countdown, and nothing happened. It was just kind of like, yay, okay, New Year's. As for the 2011 Doomsday, which was, oh, what's his name? That preacher dude who kept trying to predict the end of the world. That was funny. 2011. That was actually the year I graduated from high school. So I was a little more, aware of the world at that point. I remember that day, like that morning, was a nice day. It was sunny and clear, and I was out in the backyard cleaning something up. And our neighbor joked, it's like, yeah, it's kind of a beautiful day for the end of the world. And we all laughed. And that was pretty much it. Like, literally nobody, except for a few people, took that seriously. At least nobody I knew. Nobody, like, it was basically like only the people who were, like, hardened followers of him beforehand took that seriously. Uh, oh, wait a minute. Did I just grab the info screen without it crashing? Ooh. I should pay attention to that. I need to be careful. So that was actually really funny. I'm trying to think if there's some. But one thing I always found funny about that is, okay, I'm atheist. I don't believe in God or demons or ghosts or anything supernatural, really. I find them fascinating to study. Like, I actually love theology and I love mythology and I love all that. But I grew up in a very religious household. My dad's an ex-minister. My mother has a theology degree. In fact, they both do. And I had to do Bible study as a kid. So I actually have the interesting distinction of, unlike most Christians, I have actually read the Bible, like, huge swaths of it, and I've actually had to, like, interpret and learn how to study it. Which, again, isn't a bad thing. It's a fascinating book. But anyways, so my biggest issue with that was he was like, oh, he did all this math to prove that the world was gonna end in 2011 in May, and all this stuff. And my problem with that was the Bible clearly states that no man will ever like know the end date. Like if you subscribe to the teachings of the book, you can never predict the end of the world because God straight up said it's never happening. No man will ever, or woman, no human being, no non omnidimensional mind will ever know the end time date. So even just trying to predict it is technically heresy, which again most Protestant Christian sects these days don't actually follow the teachings at all. It's all just like I'm not gonna say a scam, although it does certainly feel that way. But yeah, so of course he and his followers wouldn't know that because you actually have to read the Bible to understand that you can't actually predict the end of the world. So I found the whole thing really funny, personally, but I ignored it because again, it was great. It was my last year of school. I was like, really don't care. I have more important things to worry about. Mostly, I had to get my last credits to like actually graduate because I'd been sick through most of junior high and spent all of high school catching up. And I just barely got through. I had to actually take one class in the summer to get through like the final 2 credits I needed, but I did it. Mostly despite a guidance counselor who said, "Oh yeah, you're probably not going to get enough credits in time to graduate." And I was like, "Oh, I'll show you," and I sure did. Because yes, what a terrible thing to say to a teenager. Honestly, it's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna fail." Um, yeah, I was 17 when I graduated. I didn't turn 18 to my first year of university. And then I was like, I'm gonna go to the bar, and I just never did. I just didn't drink very much. Oh man, turning 18 was kind of just a lame thing. Nothing really important happened. It's like, oh, I'm legally an adult now, but it didn't really matter. But yeah, trying to think of other end of the worlds. I mean, the same fellow said the world would end later on in that year, and of course, it didn't happen. Wasn't there an end of the world recently that came and went that I missed? Oh yeah, there was the Mayan calendar. That was funny. Granted, the Mayan calendar never actually said the world was ending at the end of the 13th back tomb. It just that's when the calendar like reset. So it's like, what does the world like does the world end in December 31st, like when our calendar resets? No. But apparently, it's like, oh, look at this. The Mayan calendar is gonna like the end of the 13th back tomb, and it's like it's gonna, or however it's pronounced, and it's gonna cause the end of the world. It's like, no, it's not. The Mayan calendar is actually fascinating. God, their entire like numbering system is actually fascinating. I'm trying to think, who was it? It might have been the Mayans or the Inca. No, I think maybe it was the Sumerian. No. Who was it? It was like the Aztecs or the Mayans. Somebody who had like a base 60 counting method instead of like the base 10 we use. Oh, I forget who it was. It might have even been Sumar, but I don't think so. This looks kind of like Duna. It has the very wide caps. Actually, wait, where was the life? Was it this moon we were at? This moon? Oh yeah, this one with life. Actually, what's really interesting that I like studying is the development of mathematics in different cultures, especially ancient cultures, because you find that through a lot of history, in most cultures, there wasn't a concept for zero. Like, there was one and beyond, but there wasn't a zero. There wasn't a concept for nothing. I forget who was kind of like the first to denote zero. I want to say, like, oh, I think it was an Arabic culture that was the first to kind of denote zero. Yeah, I think it was because like the Islamic Golden Age, where like the Middle East was kind of the center of science and discovery. Absolutely brilliant people came out of that. Like this one fellow, I forget his name. I think he was a sultan of somewhere, but he was looking at the stars and thinking about them. And there was an idea at the time where it's like we see things because unknown rays emanate from the eyes, bounce off an object, and come back to us, and that's how we see things. And he was looking at the moon, and he thought the moon is so far away. How could rays leave my eyes, hit that, and come back within a time frame? It didn't make sense, and he kind of started the first inklings of thought of there being a cosmic speed limit for, well, I guess eventually what would turn out to be light. And it's fascinating. I love learning about this. Or speaking of rings here, the discovery of Saturn's rings. That's an interesting one too, because Galileo was the first one to see them, and he had no idea what they were, because he thought at first they were just two moons that were kind of like, on either side of the planet. But then when Saturn kind of moved so that it was edge on, they disappeared. And he couldn't see them anymore. And he was like, I guess Saturn enveloped the moons. And then a little bit later, Saturn came back to a position where its rings were no longer edge on, and he could see it again. And he had no idea. He was stumped. He was like, I don't know. And then later on, some other astronomers were like, maybe it's a disk that's attached to the planet that's sticking out. But that didn't make much sense. So then somebody else was like, well, maybe it's like a solid ring, a solid disk that's not connected to the planet. And they were like, okay, that's interesting. And I think it was William Herschel who was looking at it up close, and he denoted that it was made of multiple rings, which people were like, okay, it's made of multiple solid rings. And they were like, no, that wouldn't be stable with the physics we know. And then that kind of came to the idea of what if they're not solid at all and they're made of tiny particles and bits and pieces of debris? And all of a sudden, all the math made sense and the whole thing made sense. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what Saturn's rings are. They're made of debris. And boom. That was incredibly shorthand. I skipped over a lot, but that whole like history of Saturn's rings is actually I find very interesting because it's a nice progression of human thought. So, yeah, that's 21 minutes. I should probably end it there. I have to actually set up my shop for my next item, which is my umbrella ship model kit, which I finally got finished. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have ideas for other things for me to talk about or place to go, please let me know. In the meantime, I hope you have a great day. I missed the lunar eclipse because it was cloudy outside, so I hope you all enjoyed, and space.